Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what time you are joining us. This webinar is titled Engaging Patients with Type B Aortic Dissections as Partners in Patient-Centered Outcomes Research. This is an introductory webinar with the hopes of orienting you to this project. I am Shireen Shalhoub. I am an Associate Professor of Surgery and a Vascular Surgeon at the University of Washington School of Medicine in Seattle, and I am the project lead for this project. This is a project that is funded by PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. It is funded via the Eugene Washington PCORI Engagement Award. The work for this project will span 2 years, ending in July of 2021. What I will talk to you about today is about what is PCORI. I will briefly touch on what is Type B aortic dissection and the challenges in Type B aortic dissection care. Then I will describe the vision, mission, strategy, and organization of this collaborative, and I will close by telling you how to get involved. Up here on the slide, you will see on the top is the direct link to this, the information for this project if you wanted to get more information. PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, is an institute that funds research in the United States, similar to the NIH. This was established in 2010, and the mandate of this organization is to fund comparative effectiveness clinical research, or CER, clinical effectiveness research, that engage patients and other stakeholders throughout the research process. And as part of this work, they funded the Eugene Washington PCORI Engagement Awards, and the purpose of these awards is to create this bridge between researchers and non-researchers, predominantly stakeholders who are affected by any disease process, so that they can work collaboratively towards creating research prioritization and having input into the research process. This here is also a link to more information if you want to learn more about the Eugene Washington PCORI Engagement Awards. PCORI studies focus on pragmatic studies. These are studies that happen in real-world populations and settings. They center on relevant patient-centered outcomes, and they engage multiple stakeholders as well as patients. The comparative effectiveness research, this is research that is focused on head-to-head comparisons of using medications or interventions that are in wide use, that are currently used in medical care, and the question is which one works better. You can see here, this is a brief background in terms of PCORI of how many studies they had funded. They have funded a substantial amount of money towards pragmatic clinical studies in multiple areas of medicine. And specifically, they have a mandate to fund research for rare diseases. And you can see that they awarded $92 million to fund 30 studies, comparative effectiveness studies, related to rare diseases. So that leads me to Type B aortic dissection. Aortic dissection, if you were to search online, you will find that actually it's estimated to occur in less than 200,000 cases in the United States per year. And by definition, this is considered a rare disease. And specifically, the project that we are talking about has to do with Type B aortic dissection. If you look in the middle panel, this is a picture of the aorta, and Type B aortic dissection happens in the descending portion of the thoracic aorta, and then all the way on the right is a 3D reconstruction of a CT image showing a Type B aortic dissection. And when we think about Type B aortic dissection treatment, we realize that we think about two modalities of treatment. One is medical therapy, which is applied to everybody. This focuses on blood pressure control at the time of dissection and in the long term. And then surgical repair of the aorta, which usually is reserved for cases in which there's organ ischemia because there's reduced blood flow in the branch arteries or occlusion of the branch arteries, in cases of aneurysm formation, as well as in cases of aortic rupture. And there has been a move in the recent years towards prophylactically repairing the dissected aorta to prevent this complication of aneurysm formation, and that has been a shift in practice over time. One of the challenges in managing Type B aortic dissection is that the patients face dramatically different options for care without strong evidence for the long-term consequences of these options at an individual level. And this comes predominantly because the population is heterogeneous, meaning the people affected with type B aortic dissections have different reasons for why they had aortic dissections, such as heritable aortic disease, and in some cases, poorly controlled high blood pressure or potential drug use. So there's variation in why people are affected by type B aortic dissection, and they potentially would respond differently to therapy as well. But we do not have our treatments currently tailored individually in that way. And so the research challenges have to do with that the long-term data are frequently not available, and again, the condition is relatively rare. Because of that, we had this vision for creating a collaborative aortic dissection research infrastructure. So this is our vision, is to, number one, facilitate patient-centered outcomes research, PCOR, training, support, and networking among the different stakeholders who are affected by type B aortic dissection, and two, to improve the management and increase the quality of life for people impacted by aortic dissection. By the end of the 2 years, our goal is to assemble a broad network of patients with type B aortic dissection and stakeholders who are well-informed about the disease, well-informed about patient-centered outcomes research and comparative effectiveness research trials, and who will guide the research prioritization in type B aortic dissection research. So who are the stakeholders? These are patients with type B aortic dissections first and foremost, and then the clinicians that take care of them. And you can see here there's a variety of specialties who take care of patients with type B aortic dissections, including vascular and cardiac surgeons, cardiologists, geneticists, vascular medicine, and emergency medicine. We also have researchers who are interested in this research, patient advocacy groups, industry, and research consortium. And so we want all of these stakeholders to be involved in this process. And to do that, we will hit on 4 points. And these include, again, building the infrastructure. We will form a governance structure and create a virtual research network to engage with the community of patients and stakeholders affected with type B aortic dissection. We will formalize loosely formed partnerships among multiple organizations and create a larger community that is focused on engaging patients in this research. We want to evaluate the pre-existing patient-centered outcomes research and comparative clinical effectiveness research knowledge among participants, and as well as evaluate the willingness to participate in research and to answer the question about what are the research priorities important to the stakeholder group. And lastly, we want to build capacity for researcher and non-researcher partnerships to create these research questions and ultimately submit patient-centered outcomes research proposals that can be considered for funding by PCORI as well as the NIH. And to do this, again, to reemphasize, our mission is to create and sustain this collaborative network, to understand the patient's needs, and determine the best research methodology that we can use to answer these questions. And if you think about the strategy, the patient-researcher partnerships are a tri-legged stool in which is a component of education that is learned together, building the infrastructure, as well as cooperation between the stakeholders. The proposed governing structure consists of 3 layers. One is an advisory group, one is a stakeholder group, and one is a virtual research network, or the VRN. The advisory group is composed of a core group of leaders who have submitted this proposal and have been involved in the strategic planning, event planning, and preparing this funding application. This group will also be responsible to develop the manuscripts and the meeting presentations, as well as lead the development and dissemination of blog posts and progress reports to the community, and contribute to a survey development, and I will comment more about the survey shortly. The stakeholder group is a larger group of leaders in type B aortic dissection research, patient advocacy groups, clinicians, as well as industry representatives. The role of the stakeholder group is to work alongside the advisory group and contribute meaningfully to major decisions, as well as provide feedback on materials and outreach plans that developed by the collaborative. And we will have a memorandum of understanding among the groups so that everybody agrees on the governance structure and what the roles are. The virtual research network This one will be the larger group, and potentially most of you who are listening in today, this should be composed of a large and a diverse group of stakeholders, including the patients, as well as their caregivers and family members, and other clinicians who are interested in this work, and including professional societies, representatives of accountable care organizations, policymakers, insurers, payers, and researchers. This will be assembled mostly via outreach through existing relationships, and will heavily leverage social media connections as well to outreach and to disseminate the information. So by introduction, this is our primary team at the University of Washington, based at the Department of Surgery and at the Surgical Outcomes Research Center source. You've met me already. I'm the project lead. My project co-lead is Dr. Peter Byers. He is the professor of pathology and professor of medicine and medical genetics here at the University of Washington. Two other folks you will hear from are Sarah Lawrence, who is our senior project manager in engagement and communications at the Surgical Outcomes Research Center, and Jenny Lee, who is our senior qualitative researcher as well at the same Surgical Outcomes Research Center. Our advisory group, we have 5 patient advocates. As you can see here is Melanie Case, Navalette Cotter, John Howitt, we're missing his picture, and Timo Soderlund and Deborah Trotter. These are involved with type B aortic dissection in a variety of ways and compose our patient advisory group. Our stakeholder group to date is relatively small, and this is part of, we hope, by you listening to this webinar that you will come forward and join us as a stakeholder. So to date, we have 2 major stakeholders. One is Dr. Diana Milowitz, who is the professor of medical genetics at the University of Texas at Houston. She is also the driving force behind the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health and the Multilcino Aortic Consortium. The John Ritter Foundation is dedicated toward advocacy and raising awareness of aortic disease, and then Multilcino Aortic Consortium is involved in the research for heritable thoracic aortic disease. Our second stakeholder is Dr. Kim Eagle. He is professor of internal medicine and cardiology at the University of Michigan. He is the founder of IRAD, the International Registry of Aortic Dissections, as well as the GENTAC Alliance. Both of these, the IRAD works on, again, it's a research infrastructure to evaluate aortic dissections, and the GENTAC Alliance is specifically dedicated to genetically triggered aortopathies. On the right, you see the Twitter post by Timo Soderlund. He's, again, one of our patient advisors, and he has been, created the International Aortic Dissection Day, which has become an Aortic Disease Awareness Day, and he does have the right ideas. Like, we have multiple resources and information on aortic disease, and wouldn't it be great if we all work together towards a common goal? This here is a timeline of what we had promised to do over the next 2 years. And the easiest way to think about this is that in year 1, this is where we want to meet you. We will work on a survey that will disseminate to patients with type B aortic dissections and get an understanding of where people are and meet them halfway in terms of understanding what the issues are that are relevant to them, what is their knowledge background on research, how interested are they in participating in research and in what way. And in addition to creating, as I said, the governance structure and inviting the stakeholders during this time to join this effort. In early year 2, we will have an in-person meeting that we are still in the process of putting together, in which we will bring the stakeholders for a full day in-person meeting to review the results of the survey and highlight the main issues that are of interest to the stakeholder community, and then work on designing comparative effectiveness research questions, followed by a research prioritization survey that year that we will send out to the Virtual Research Network community again, with the goal at the end of 2 years of submitting a grant application that is in line with the priorities of the community. We are targeting to have our meeting on October 9th in 2020 in Ann Arbor. And again, as I mentioned, the point of the meeting is to review the research topics and then divide these into themes that can be formatted into comparative effectiveness research that is feasible and translatable to clinical care in a short manner. And we expect, again, members of the advisory and the stakeholder groups to attend, but additionally, we will facilitate remote attendance by members of the Virtual Research Network. So in closing, you may ask, well, how do I get involved? I would say at this point, your role is to help us identify stakeholders, people who you think are relevant to this effort, who their voices need to be represented in the work that we are doing. Please spread the word. You can tweet this, put it on Facebook, share it on social media, and try to reach as many people who are affected as possible. And at the bottom there, you have my Twitter handle at the moment, @Shireen_Chalhoub. Please feel free to mark that when you send out your tweets. And eventually we will come up with a name for this collaborative. So this is another way that you should help us. Please help us pick a name. Currently, it is a collaborative effort. It's a type B aortic dissection involved collaborative effort, but we are in the process of trying to pick a name. And so this is one way you can help now by helping us pick a name that describes what we are doing. And then we will create the appropriate Twitter handles and Facebook handles and social media presence. And at the bottom of the screen on the left, you will see the initial website that we started putting together, where we will plan on populating this over the next couple of years with more information about the study. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for listening to this. Feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or via email. We will post this information as well online, and so feel free to share it. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day.